I'm about to do is wrong. I know that. It's a violation of trust and a violation of privacy. But my roommate's in class on the other end of campus, and there's a letter right here on her desk from my brother. They met and hit it off when he came to visit me a few weeks ago, and they've exchanged a few letters since then. My brother's most significant relationship so far has been with his model trains. So I've never seen him in a dating relationship. I'm dying to know how he expresses himself to my roommate. Curiosity wins out over integrity, and I start to read the letter. I know. Justice is swift. Instead of getting a glimpse into my brother's romantic persona, this is what I see. We're all very sad here because our dog Tassel was run over by a car today and killed. Don't tell Sandra. We're not going to tell her until she calls home next Sunday. Curiosity, famously known to have killed the cat, has rewarded me with a dead dog and a moral dilemma. When my roommate gets back from class, do I hide my grief or admit to snooping? I'm devastated about Tassel, of course, but I'm also very ashamed of what I've done and afraid of my roommate's justifiable wrath. So I opt to hide my grief. It's going to be tough because Tassel was a sweet little Lhasa Apso with an endearing underbite. We adopted her just about a year ago after we lost our old English sheepdog Chumley to old age. It's especially heartbreaking to lose another dog so soon and so horribly. I glanced tearfully at the picture of Tassel that I have hanging over my dorm bunk, and I put my brother's letter back where I found it. For the rest of the week, I put on a brave face while my roommate's around and vent my grief in the privacy of the shower. Over the next few days, my shame and my grief are joined by frustration and bewilderment. I can't reach out to my roommate or my family for comfort because I'm still too ashamed to admit that I know about Tassel, or more to the point, how I know about Tassel. And while we're at it, what's up with my roommates being privy to my family's sad news, where all I've heard from home is radio silence. And my roommate's been sworn to secrecy. Don't tell Sandra. Why? Is my family hoping to reanimate Tassel by Sunday so I'll never be the wiser? Pets have always been an important part of our family. I can't remember a time when we didn't have at least one cat, dog, or goldfish in the house. Growing up around pets can have a positive impact on kids' mental and physical health, and even the sad reality of short pet life expectancies can help kids learn to cope with other losses throughout life. Sadly, those beneficial lessons were lost on my brothers and me because of the way lessons our parents learned in their own childhoods impacted their ability as adults to deal with death and emotions. My father subscribed to the "they ran away" school of denial. It was his go-to explanation for every pet death that we kids didn't personally witness. The gerbils ran away. The German Shepherd was sent to live on a farm. The turtle ran away. Apparently while no one was home because he made a clean getaway. Now this approach is fine for very young children, but Dad trotted it out until we were well into our teens, and when being treated like a small child added an extra element of sadness to the event. It wasn't until I was nearly 18 and I saw my dad falling apart when we had to have poor old Chumley euthanized that it occurred to me he'd been protecting himself and not us. And in that same flash of young adult wisdom, I realized that I had known the reason why all along. Dad had told us the story often enough and in very graphic detail. He'd been traumatized as a young child when he witnessed a boy about his age being hit by a truck. My mother's childhood trauma was more about emotional death. She was raised in an environment where self-effacement was a virtue and empathy was unheard of. It was as if my grandparents, who were financially challenged because it was the Great Depression, could only afford one emotion and the whole family had to share it. So my poor mother, when she was a child, would be shamed if she, for example, was sad about something when everyone else was happy about something completely unrelated. And so while as an adult, my mom was more openly frank about discussing pet death with us kids than Dad was, she protected herself by quickly quashing any emotions we might be feeling about it. So on that long-awaited Sunday, when after a week of emotional isolation, I made my compulsory weekly call home from college, my mom officially told me about Tess. And now that I could vent them freely, all my emotions from the week came crowding through my tear ducts, like the Three Stooges jostling each other through a doorway. While I sobbed on the phone, my mother was uncomfortably silent on her end of the line. I could feel her disapproval. I finally asked the question that had been nagging at me all week. Why did you wait so long to tell me? Because I knew you'd be upset. She didn't know the half of it. Now, the good news is that as an adult, I've learned healthy strategies for dealing with death and emotions. And somewhat ironically, whatever lingering karmic debt I owed for invading my roommate's privacy was paid years later while I was electronically eavesdropping on a former lover. He and I had met online and fallen in love back when that was a novelty, and we enjoyed a passionate long-distance love affair for several years. When it eventually ended, it ended amicably, but with the understanding that we wouldn't ever contact each other ever again, and we never did. But one night in 2002, I was feeling nostalgic, and I Googled him. The first hit on his name was his obituary. He had succumbed to a brain tumor a few months earlier. Now, we had no friends in common, and social media wasn't a thing yet. So if I hadn't Googled him on a whim that night, I might have never known what happened to him and that he was gone. But this time, there was no need to hide my grief. My tears for him flowed freely, unfettered by shame. I knew what I was doing wasn't